Okay, so what we'll be doing tonight is we're going to take a look at vSphere, and I rebuilt all of the machines over the weekend. You each have your own individual machine, and everything is pre-installed for you. So we'll be able to go right in tonight and start working on Chapter 2. The plan for this week is we're going to do Chapter 2 tonight. We'll finish up Chapter 2 on Wednesday night and then get into Chapter 3. And after Chapter 3, we'll have a little, hey, how you doing experience. Um, and usually my tests are open book, so don't anybody panic. All right. Class questions. All right, let's get this going. First of all, how many of you are taking advanced database second 8 weeks? Let me rephrase that. How many are not? Oh, you want to take it. The instructors, the instructor's fantastic. Uh, Let me tell you the reason I ask. Um, we have some latitude with that final project, and since we had a week-long problem with vSphere, we can back off a little bit. I can cover the material not quite so quickly. We can finish up SQL the first week in the second 8 week block and then jump into advanced database. Normally in advanced database we have a project that we will do for some community entity. And the community entity I had lined up for us to work with backed out. So we will do something, but that gives us a little more time if we want to slow down with SQL. If you all are burning the track up, then we'll get done and I'll find us another community group to work with. Any questions on that? And if you're concerned about advanced database or have some specific questions, see me after class, Rebecca, if you want to, or anybody else. I'll answer all your questions. I will apologize right now. The book is ridiculous in the cost. However, it's a book that you can sell as soon as the class is over. It's got good building foundation information, but it's not a book that I would recommend you keep. However, the SQL book that we have is a fantastic Bible if you ever get into anything with SQL. So the textbook that you have for this class, I would highly recommend that you keep. Now, out on our D2L site in the week 4 folder, I have put the sqlDeveloper manual. You can take a look at that. Again, it's already installed for you, but I thought you might be interested in how some things work in it and some of the unique setups that you can do. So that's available. Additionally, there is a PDF out there on SQL commands, and I think it's 5, 6, 7 pages of every SQL command that we're going to use in the 2 classes, with an example of how it's used and an explanation of what it does. So you may want to go through and look at that. Also, I think I had time to upload the PDF for tonight's class. It should be out there. So you've got that material you can look at, and I will have a homework assignment for you on Wednesday, and I'll probably give you a little bit of time in class to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the assignment and SQL Developer. Any other questions, or any questions? All right. We saw this before. This is our vCyber or vSphere login, and remember it was your first name dash last name dash RSC, wasn't it? That, and then your password is password1. So if everybody would do that and then stop, we need to do this lockstep, and that means we're going to do it all together this first time. After you log in, you'll get the security warning. Please wait at that point. You didn't get the security warning? Ignore that then. That's fine, Liz. Anyone having problems logging in? Okay, maybe. When we all start at once, the system will slow down a little bit. Gentlemen?
What was the username? You said
First name dash last name dash RSC. Capital P password with a 1 after it. I don't think it is. They've changed the username since I used this before on how we do it. Okay. All right, so if you did not get the security warning, don't worry about it. That's fine. Sometimes it'll come up, sometimes it, pardon me, 1 second. I set a timer so I had time to let you all ask questions, and I set 1 minute instead of 1 hour, and I thought, boy, class went fast tonight. Okay. If you came up with this screen, what you want to select is on the top row, third over, and it's the machines and templates that we're going to. If that didn't come up, don't worry at all. You will more than likely have seen this from Roy. Just go ahead and click OK, and then on your screen you may have to navigate to it, but go down to rows, state dash OK, and open it up. Come down to Oracle 1293 and open it up, and then there's a folder called Students, and everybody's last name is in there. So if you would click on your name, you should see on the right side something like this. And so what we want to do is click on the power on button to power up your virtual machine. Those of you who have done this with Ken and Cyber, bear with me. You can speed through it next time. It may take a while for this to come up. When it's on and running, the machine's ready for us to use, it'll transition to this. It'll show, instead of power on, power off, suspend, or edit. Now, Roy and William, who run our lab, have asked that when we exit out of the machines, we close down the operating system and then power down the virtual machine, and we'll look at how to do that at the end of class tonight. Does everybody have their machine on? Good. All right. All right. Up in the toolbar, you should see a little monitor with the green arrow. It'll say to console, and let's go ahead and press that. And while that is loading, your computer is ready to use. Again, including, I put the spool folder on your computer. I would highly recommend that anything you create in the class, you navigate out to that spool folder and leave it there for 2 reasons. Yes, ma'am. Save the material in the spool folder. If you want to use the virtual machine from home, everything is there. internet, so you'll be able to use it. Any place you have internet access, you'll be able to use this machine.
Should I restart?
Yeah, go ahead and restart. If your system is up, and I'll slow down a little bit. If your system is up on the desktop, you should see three specific icons. One says Start Database, one is sqlDeveloper shortcut, and the third one is Stop Database. We have to manually start and stop the instance of Oracle World running. So when you have the desktop, go ahead and click on Start Database. Now, what will happen when you do that is eventually a command line window will open and show you that the Oracle service has been successfully started. I had one poor guy 2 years ago that he would open this window up and then close it. And whenever he closed it, it would mess the database up and he'd have to start again. So when this is complete and it shows successful, or even once this window comes up, click on the minimize button and take it down. And what it's doing is loading all the background administrative things that we need to load to get Oracle and sqlDeveloper running. Gail.
Mine never showed the first two ones, just
That's fine. You're okay. Go ahead and minimize that. And then the next thing we want to click on is sqlDeveloper in the middle. And when you do that, you may receive a screen like this, or you may receive a screen that gives you an opportunity to enter code.
after I did the start database, I had an error. I think I started restarting your computer to try to stream.
Oh, that may be, ignore that. Or restart later. If you get to restart, do a restart later. Oh, and you're going to get central point in service. Just close that out. That we don't need. Here on the left side of your screen are the connections that we have. And the database that we'll be using in the first 8 weeks is called SQL Fun. All right? And so what we want to do is right-click on SQL Fun. A fly-up window will come out, and we want to click on Connect. And we'll get everybody to the point then where we're ready to use, ready to log in. Okay. These machines, you're going to find out the vSphere machines, if there are a lot of people online, run a little slow, so you may have to double click a couple of times. Now, on these machines, anytime you're working in Oracle and you're prompted for a username, your username is dbuser. That's kind of a traditional thing in Oracle when you're learning. In fact, if you look at the Oracle documentation, they'll tell you that it's set up with dbuser. Is it coming up?
I know that there's two potential threats. That's the reason I wanted to keep
No. The threat is Oracle and Oracle Developer. So, by the way, I have yet to tell you, I'll pass it along now. there is one thing that Oracle hates worse than the end user. All right, Oracle would absolutely desire that we not use their database. All right, but the good thing to know is Oracle hates Microsoft more than it hates us. So that's, and if you keep that in mind, then everything we're going to do for the next 12 weeks is all going to make sense. All right, Oracle hates you. Great, yeah. Okay, your login is DB user. The password is Oracle. Now, when you type the password in, you're going to get asterisks. It's not going to show you Oracle. I set that up so you can see. Type that in and click OK, and it'll start chunking away to connect you to the database.
How do you get to the login screen?
No. Right click on the connection that says and again, Oracle all lowercase is another standard password in an Oracle user environment. So DB user and Oracle, you can log on to just about any user interest. Okay, this slide I want to go over with you, and let's talk a little bit about it. We're going to start taking a look at the query code in Chapter 2. And the best way to do this is to watch, and I'll explain some of the things that happen as we go through it. I'll encourage you, should you desire, to go ahead and type in the code. But I'm not going to stop class to troubleshoot somebody's code. So if it doesn't work, listen to what some of the things are that might not make it work, and then troubleshoot it when you have a chance. We're going to discuss troubleshooting of the code on Wednesday, and things to look for and things that I picked up over the last, good grief, since we won't even go there, a while from students in Oracle and how to make mistakes. And then I want you to practice entering the code. So sometime between the end of class tonight and the beginning of class on Wednesday, if you would go through this a couple more times, get comfortable with the login, and type in the code in about the first 15 pages of Chapter 2. Now, I think the longest script that we type in is like 7 or 8 lines. So it's not going to be something formidable. And you'll see that as we go through. All right, so what we have is I put a little reminder up, and we talked about that last week. But I have set up my first query, and this is event 2-2 in the book. And I'll always put a chapter and an event number that we're using. Where I can, I'll put a page in also, if I think it's necessary. Select is a reserved word. Oracle tradition, even though sqlDeveloper will not do it for you, well, this version might. Reserved words in Oracle are always put in capital letters. So select, from, and where are reserved words. So we would always type those in capital letters. Now, my little peccadillo, a little trick that I learned a long time ago, is most people would start from the top and select the attributes they want, then the table, and then any conditioning clauses that they want. I do the table first, and this is L _bar employees. That's the table name. And when I do that, you'll see on the next slide, then sqlDeveloper and Oracle will try and predict the next values that I want to select. And it becomes very useful once you get used to it. It's kind of an odd IntelliSense, like Microsoft has. But remember, Oracle hates Microsoft. Okay, so I typed in the table name L_bar employees, and now I go up to the select option, and I want to type in the attributes that I want to display. So as soon as I type in EM, sqlDeveloper already knows the table or the entity I'm going to, so it'll give me a list of all of the attributes that start with EM. All right, employee ID, comma 2, employee ID, and I can count different things that I have. 99.9 times out of 100, the attribute you want will be at the very top of that little printout. Okay? So we'll go through there, and this is just an example. I'm not even sure they tell you to enter it in the book, but I'm selecting the attribute employee ID. Remember, we've already talked that if I'm not done selecting my attributes, I put a comma after each attribute. Then last name, and then credit limit. Credit limit is the last attribute I want to see, so I don't put a comma after that. It's just a blank space. We've already filled in our table name or our entity name, L_bar employees, and then I put in a where clause, where the credit limit is greater than $20. Notice we don't need to use the dollar sign. We do need to put in our decimals. And then I come down and I do order by, and you're going to say, man, well, this doesn't make sense. Well, we're going to go through each step here once we run this. Order by, and I can order by any of these attributes that came up. And since I didn't type anything in, sqlDeveloper doesn't know which attribute I want, so it's going to display all of them. In the past, I've had students see if they could type faster than Oracle could predict. They used to bet money on it, and at that point, I didn't want to know anything else about it. But it will bring up all of the attributes that you have. All right, now, on this query, I want to order it by last name, and then to run the query, and this becomes very important. My recommendation is to highlight the query that you want to run, and you'll see why we do that in just a second. After you've highlighted it, then you want to hit the run button right here. It's a little green triangle. You do that, and here's the report that we get out. Alphabetical by last name, and our credit limit is greater than $20. Okay? So take a couple of seconds, take a look at that. Anything that you're concerned about or doesn't make sense? So what we have in Chapter 2 that we want to take a look at tonight is we have three forms of select. Now remember, select is where we're going to get the data and turn it into information. That's the start of this. And we can select a list, we can select everything that's out there, or we can select a distinct value. And we're going to take a look at each one of those to finish up the class this evening. Again, if it's not already out there, all this will be out on D2L first thing in the morning. Alright, so these are our three forms of select clauses: list, all, and distinct. And let's look at how we do those. The select query form is select last name. That's going to select distinct. Select all. is an asterisk, or this will give us every last name, or select a distinct last name. And distinct we'll get into probably in a little more detail on Wednesday night. The only three requirements in a query clause, and we have several different kinds of clauses: query, update, add, append, but we're dealing with a query clause right now. And the only required reserved words in a query clause are select, which selects what? What do we put here? Attributes, very good. And the from is our table or entity, very good. So I can do select star from L underbar employees, and it will list what for me? Right, right. Everything from the L underbar employee table. Now, the tables we're working with this 8 weeks are very small. I think the largest one might have 24 entries in it. The tables we'll play with second 8 weeks will have 2, 3, 4, 5 million entries in it. So we're going to crawl before we run into the big queries. Okay, a column can be renamed in a query by giving it an alias. An alias is another name for a column. We know that Oracle, when we name our column or our attributes, does not like spaces. So we have to run everything together as camel case, or we can use an underbar or a dash to do that. But a lot of times in reports, our end users don't like to see that. So we can use something called an alias. Excuse me. This is on page 38. And notice how we do it. What indicates that we're using an alias is the reserved word as. And notice that's capitalized when we go through here. So select the attribute last name as name. Okay? And so it'll print out name at the beginning of the head of the run. Select phone number as, I didn't capitalize that, but Oracle will recognize that as a reserved word. Again, it's kind of Oracle culture, Oracle tradition. You capitalize the reserved words, but it's not necessary. All right, totally up to you. We're going to call phone number extension, then we're going to throw in last name, and then we're going to add in attributes that don't exist in our entity. And we do that the same way. We're going to say excellent worker as an attribute called evaluation, and 10 as the rating. Now, if you don't take notes on anything else tonight, take notes on this. When we have a non-attribute entry in a select statement, an attribute entry is last name, is phone number, let's see, yeah, okay, just those two. When we have a non-attributed column declared, this is not saved anywhere. It will appear only in your report. And so when we run this report, you'll see that we have an attribute called evaluation, but the only place that exists is in the query that we created. If we would go look at our table, L underbar employee, we would not see an evaluation attribute there. So this is a query, of course, from L underbar employee. I'm using just selected from, which are the minimum reserved words that I have to use, and when I run that, this is what I get. Now, I've opened up the L underbar employee entity so you can see there's nothing listed for an we'll find that out. Null is a searchable value. All right, let's go a step further here. If I want to select all the selecting all the columns is the simplest query you can write. And if it's a small table, it's an easy way to find out all the data that you have. If it's over 50 or 100 different entity instances, you'll drive yourself nuts trying to look through it. This is very simple. Select asterisk from L underbar employees. It was one of the examples we looked at. If you're continuing to write down the screen, you want to highlight these two lines before you click on the run icon. If you're starting a new sheet, every time that we create a new query, you can just click on run. Make sure your cursor though is somewhere in the code. Yes, sir.
I'm on the same page, but you say you can create a new one. How do you create a new one?
Okay, if I don't have it shown, but it would be here, so create new, or maybe it's so it's easier to do them all on one, and we'll talk about that later. But when you run this query, there's everything that's in the L underbar employee table. And so again, we have 10 entries, very easy to see. And notice we have nulls for Carol Rose. So how appropriate. So Carol must be a new employee. Okay, select query or a select all query can be modified so we can limit or format the results if we want to. And so that's done very simply by adding a where clause. So we take our select wildcard from L underbar employees, and now we add what we call a conditional clause or a where clause. And whoever asked, can we search for null? Yes, we can right now. And notice the syntax. The attribute is null. Okay? So if we type this in and we run this query, what we get is this, where the manager ID is null. And so we know Rose was all null, but we missed the fact that Susan Brown had a manager ID that was null. Now if I can run a query that says is null, I can run a query that says is not null and find out all of the records that have everything completed and not use the null attribute. Now this is a nice report. It tells us where it's null, and it's very easy to look and see we have Susan Brown and Carol Rose. But think about what would happen if we had 200 or 300 new employees every month. We had to run this report and make sure that every attribute was filled in for our new employee hires. Well, we probably would want to sort that information out so we could see a name and easily figure out who they were or names that we wanted to look for. So we can do that with a select query again, but we can also take that select query and sort it. And again, that's a very simple addition to our basic query. We're still selecting every attribute we have from the L underbar employee table, but now we're going to use the reserved words order by, and then we're going to sort by last name. query looks like this when you type it in. By the way, we're on page 43. Ignore the chapter 2 that jumped in. That's select asterisk. Oh, down here. Select asterisk from employee ordered by last name. And there are a couple of different languages that use the command term sort by. And if you've done programming in other languages, sometimes you forget to use the order by. I'm guilty, I do that myself. When we run this query, I don't have the results to show you. You'll have to run the query. This is where I quit running results to try and save time. Okay. We can also use distinct, which is another reserved word, to find values in a column that are listed maybe just a couple times, or in fact listed only one time. And so to do that, distinct goes with our select statement. Select distinct manager ID from L_bar employees. Now let's think about this. What would that give us if we used a select distinct query? Is it going to give us every employee's manager's ID? No. What it's going to do is give us one instance of each of the different manager IDs. So that's where select distinct comes from. We're only going to see an event one time. All right. This is the way it looks in sqlDeveloper. Again, blue for our reserve words, select distinct manager from L_bar employee. We're going through a lot. We've got just a few more slides to do, but this is really the meat of what we need for the next several chapters. So as I said at the beginning, go over this at home, try it several times on your vSphere machine. If you have problems, email me. Get a hold of me by Zoom. I'll be in the office almost all day tomorrow. So if you want to zoom in and ask me about a code or why something isn't working correctly, that's fine. Zoom is set up for video, but if you don't have video, we can do just a typed in chat or we can do just audio. Totally up to you. All right, if we can have distinct, we can couple distinct with a where clause, and that will further limit the results that we're going to get from our query. So in doing that, this is on page 46. Here's what we look like. Select distinct. Notice these two come right after each other. Again, we're still looking at manager ID, L_bar employee, but now we've added our where clause. And unlike what we did in the first couple of exercises, now we want to look for three different employee IDs. And so the way we do that is we use our reserve word where, employee ID in, and then we're going to give Oracle a list of IDs that we want to look for. So 201, 208, and 210. And so what sqlDeveloper will do is go through and look for each of those. It'll give us then just the manager ID for that. And I do have a printout of this one. Select distinct manager ID from employee, where employee ID number is in 201, 208, or 210. Why am I not printing out the employee ID? Very good. Gold star, Gail. I'll bring bring my gold stars in Wednesday. Very good. I didn't ask for it. If I don't ask for it on the select line, it will not print out. Or we don't use an alias clause in the select line, we're not going to print it out. All right. So none of our where information is printed out. So we have two. One null that we know is rows, and then 203, whoever that is. Adding a modifier to order by allows us to sort the results in either ascending or descending order, and we're going to look at both of those. I'll show you how to do them, and it's kind of unique. And I want to show you this code. This is adding ascending or descending, ASC or DESC. This is on page 47. Down here, we do our order by reserved word, the manager's ID, and then either ascending or descending. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I want to point it out. Dash is the code for Oracle to treat something as a comment. And I can either comment an entire line or I can comment a partial line. Okay? So, I wanted to give myself a reminder to show you decreasing and then show you increasing. So I put the dash ASC there. Very easy to use. There's what your code looks like in sqlDeveloper, and notice what happens. We've got it set for ascending, so 201, 202, 203, and notice where it puts null. When we're using descending, null goes at the very end. And again, dash indicates a comment. Let's modify it a little differently. Let's go ahead and in the select statement, let's say manager ID, and now we'll order by manager ID descending. So this time we're going to print all of the manager IDs out. When we do descending, notice where our null values occur. At the very first of our report. And so if I'm running a query and I want to find who has not been assigned a manager to oversee their work, I would run this query in descending order because I know all of my nulls are going to appear at the beginning of the report. Much easier to use. Also notice that because we didn't use a where modifier, we have repeating values. 203 is listed 3 times. 202 is twice, and 201 is listed 3 times. Why would we not want to use a where qualifier in a report like this? Very good. Gail, you're going to use all my gold stars up. Exactly correct. We want to see everything. Our where qualifier said that we were only going to see things one time, remember? All right, so we want to see all of our nulls. Connection is made. I want to go over, in the last couple of minutes of class here, I want to go over some things about sqlDeveloper. This indicates that our connection is made, and you'll notice once it's made, we have several different things that are available that we can look at. Right now, your tables are populated, and if you click the drop down, the plus sign for tables, you'll see all of the different tables that we're going to work with for this part of the semester. It is, but it'll go real quick. Views are a way we can view data, and as a matter of fact, the view is the safest way that we can display relay data into the form of information to our end users, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Indexes are normally used with big databases. Packages are where we want to write a group of programs and run them all at one time. And we'll look at that probably in the advanced database class. We can save queues if we want to. A trigger is an event where, let's say we enter a new employee and their manager ID is left null. All right, we could write a trigger that would pop up on our screen and say you need to assign a manager to our new employee. Or we could say we don't want to store nulls in our database, and so when we see a null, we put in a placeholder 000, and a trigger could sense that and automatically populate that field for us. All right. There are a lot of really good things that triggers can do for us, but they can get us into a world of trouble. We can create as many different databases or connections that we want to create in sqlDeveloper. In fact, in Advanced Database, I'm going to show you how to do that. That takes a little command line code in Oracle, and I want to get you comfortable with this first before we go any further. If you would now, in the upper left-hand corner under File, go ahead and click File. If you want to save your worksheets, you can, but click File and then click Exit, and then wait for me at the desktop. May take a few minutes for it to exit. Once you're out of sqlDeveloper, go ahead and click Stop Database. Which one?
I went right back to the power off.
Oh,
Screen. I clicked the exit like you told me to. It was still right.
exit on sqlDeveloper. That's all right. You're fine. It will automatically shut down the database. What you want to do once you're back out to the desktop is click on Stop Database. It'll still run Wednesday to and you'll get a command line window up that'll tell you it's shutting the database down. And most of the time, it will close that window when the database is shut down. And of course, once your database is down, then go down to the Start button and shut down your instance of vSphere. Very fortunate. If you notice, we got Windows 7 machines instead of XP, which is very good. And then finally, you would hit the red power down button when you finished, and then you could log out of vSphere. For a homework, what I want you to do is practice with sqlDeveloper. I think we worked up to page 48 in chapter 2. Enter the code that we worked with tonight. Get comfortable with it. Make mistakes if you want to see how sqlDeveloper is going to respond. That's a really good way to learn about that. I know, Rebecca, we need to troubleshoot yours. Anybody else that has any questions, hang around and I'll talk to you. Robert, I'll talk with you after we get done. Next class, what we're going to do is finish chapter 2, and it's pretty much the routine that we're going through. And in chapter 3, we get into some pretty interesting coding, and it starts to get a little more exciting. Any questions?